Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is The Weird Book with your host, Steve Luciano, and
Sasha Abramov. Welcome back, everybody.
we have a great show for you. We'll be talking about the Tower of Teeth.
The infamous Tower of Teeth.
And for any of the, well, I'm sure everybody knows what the Tower of Teeth is, but today we're going to be going over various historical details as well as some of the things you may not have heard of. So stay tuned and listen tight. So for those who aren't well acquainted with the Tower of Teeth, the Tower of Teeth is what is now known as the largest or tallest structure in the entire world, replacing...
Is it the tallest structure?
Yep, I believe it replaced the... there's a tower, or there's a skyscraper in Dubai that I think is like 2,800 feet tall.
Oh, okay. This dwarfs it almost by twice the size.
Yeah, the Tower of Teeth is actually about 5,000 feet tall. It's a little under that. I think it's 4,896 feet or something along those lines.
Okay, because I've heard different numbers, and there's so much stuff on the internet right now. It's hard to decipher what's real or not. But I mean, yeah.
So, yep, it definitely replaced. I think it's called the Khalifa Tower, probably butchering that name, but
in Dubai,
yeah, it was
right?
in Dubai. Yeah, so that it replaced that as the tallest structure in the world. But as it sounds, it's actually a tower literally made from teeth, the majority of which is made up of human teeth, and then the rest seem to be made up of not the rest. Some other teeth are made up of animal teeth, which isn't debated at all. That seems to be the two main types of teeth that the tower is made of. Mm-hmm. But the third category is the much contested kind of anomalous category of tooth morphology. I
love that name, anomalous. It's kind of buried up all sins in that, but it's really something.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's where most of the controversy is. So, for those who don't know, the third category of teeth is often either said it's an anomalous set of teeth, or they're unidentified. So there's kind of two schools of thought, from what I understand, about these anomalous teeth. So we have the more scientific mainstream perspective, which basically says that all it really is two different types of teeth from disparate species, let's say a human being and let's say a dog. And what they're saying is there was some sort of fusion process where the teeth were kind of fused together. And that fusion process has thus made those teeth unidentifiable via traditional DNA.
But it's my whole issue with that is the whole idea that they're fused. They can't account for the actual fusing process. It might as well just say magically these teeth are human and animal at the same time. It makes no sense. It's not a really viable excuse for me for what these are.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the idea that there's some sort of DNA contamination between the teeth. I've heard basically two perspectives on this, which is that the first, what I just mentioned, was that during this fusion process, which is ambiguous in and of itself, I've never gotten a very good idea of what this fusion process exactly is.
Well, this goes into the actual, what might have gone into building the actual tower, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But we are discussing the anomalous teeth, as they're called, which I personally don't think are even... I don't think they belong to any animals that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It legitimately does happen when you have contamination of two separate pools of DNA that mix together. It makes it difficult for identification. The problem I have with that is when you look at teeth, is that I'm not sure if they're talking about the enamel is fused together, because that's be incredibly difficult to do. And two, for the DNA to be mixed, based on how a tooth is actually formed, as you have the enamel, which makes up a large part of the tooth, and then when you go below that, you get to what's called the dentin and the pulp, which is what holds the DNA. So in order for there to actually be DNA corruption on the level where they're saying it can't be identified, it would have to be fused not only on the level of the enamel, but the DNA, it would have to be fused so tightly and so entirely that the pools of DNA that are in there become mixed. So, and I just don't know of any process that does that. I mean, what's the temperature for bone? I mean,
But then they wouldn't look like teeth, I would assume. That's the thing. And
well, that's the other thing. That's a good point. Yeah.
you know, teeth have, a lot of teeth have multiple chambers, especially if they're molars. You know, they have chambers where the nerve endings are stored. I mean, these are teeth. I mean, these are not mistakable for anything else. Obviously, they're not identifiable as any creature that we have encountered on this planet, unless, I don't know, unless this is Bigfoot somehow.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely look like teeth, and they don't
Yeah.
look like there's some fusion between human teeth and other teeth. There doesn't seem to be any kind of, weird. They don't look strange in the sense that they look like kind of a fused together
Yeah, they're not
mangle of teeth.
Yeah, they're not melted into one
Yeah.
pile or anything like that. They are teeth.
Yeah,
They are absolutely, undeniably, these are teeth. It's
Yeah.
just the material that they're made out of. They don't seem to match any living species that we are able to match them to.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing I've heard, which I just don't, it doesn't hold up, is that people, some have come out and said, well, teeth aren't very good sources of DNA. Now, granted, they may not have a ton of DNA in them, but they're actually very good sources of DNA. If you start to look at, for instance, extreme car crashes, plane crashes, anything that's gone through any kind of disaster where there's human death that goes through horrible conditions such as fires and such, a lot of times the only thing left is teeth, and a lot of times they use the teeth to extract DNA. So I just don't buy that argument that they're not a good enough sample, or a good enough sample to extract DNA from, because we do it all the time. We do it in forensics, we do it in identifying missing persons, and that's some of the only things that are left. So I just don't buy that perspective. I'm more on board with the DNA contamination than I am with they're not a viable source of DNA.
Yeah, but at the same time, there are multiple organizations doing DNA sampling. This is not a single organization doing one test. Otherwise this would be just really weird.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of actual independent studies done, and they all kind of came back inconclusive. I think one was actually suggesting that this is an unknown species.
Yeah, but they got torpedoed.
Largely,
they got torpedoed really quick. As
barn animals.
Yeah, exactly. They were thrown under the bus, and that's pretty. I mean, as you guys know who listen to the show, it's pretty obvious when they just want to submarine anyone who strays away from the mainstream narrative on these things, and it just doesn't. At least from the DNA perspective, I just don't necessarily buy it's a conflation of DNA.
I mean, forensically speaking, teeth are like black boxes.
Yeah.
Human black boxes. The information that remains in them is there for a long time.
And so there's obviously a second group of thought that basically postulates that these are not just anomalous teeth in the sense that they're unidentifiable due to restrictions in DNA sampling, but rather the teeth of altogether different or alien species. And I'm not quite sure, but it does seem that the tooth morphology that I've seen, the samples that I've seen, do speak to something that is not human, that is not any animal that we know of or have cataloged. I'm not going to go out and say, well, it's alien. It's only alien in the sense that I don't know what it is, but certainly it's something. It's something that's not human. It's not something that any species that we know of, and I just don't. I don't know. I don't know what it is. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm not a specialist in this. When I was shown the pictures of the anomalous teeth, to be honest, if they were put in front of me and said that these belong to animals, I would probably not have thought anything otherwise. I mean, it's just really, really creepy to think what these things belong to. These are not small teeth. These are sizable
Yeah,
sizable. Some of them are actually quite large and quite alarming, to be honest. So I'm not sure.
yeah. There's one that's almost like, I think it's like, it measures a foot, and it's
Right.
they're very, some of them are very large, and again, going back to the mainstream narrative and perspective that these are just amalgams of known teeth. I just don't. I don't see how they could be, because they're huge. I mean, you would have to carve the teeth, but you have to put them all together somehow, fuse them through. Again, going back to that, it's such an ambiguous process. Is that it's never. It's only been said that there is a fusing process, not what that process is, what it entails. There's no details about it. There's
And this
just
is strange to me because, I mean, there have been multiple documentaries. I think one was recently done by the Science Channel, did a documentary that featured the tower teeth. And they keep saying that there's a fusion process involved, but they don't even say that they don't know what the process is. They just say, these were, the teeth are held in place by a process of fusion, and that is it.
yeah. It's like, I don't even know if they're trying to infer it was melded together, or that they were broken apart and then somehow, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what that process is. It's ambiguous. And if you're going to start, like some scientists have started, well, it's the most parsimonious theory we have. Well, parsimony is a tricky thing, in the sense that, yeah, it may be very simplistic to state, but if you can't prove it and you can't empirically demonstrate that that's even a possibility, then it's no longer parsimonious. I mean, it's you're kind of doing a very grave balancing act on Occam's razor there, and it may be just more simplistic to say that it does come from a different species. We just don't know what. And to start talking about this mysterious fusion process or melding process or whatever the hell it is to kind of evoke the possibility that human beings came up with some really novel process or strategy to do this that we can no longer remember or no longer understand. And I just find that to be just as far-fetched, to be honest with you.
Well, it's almost like the Back to the Future car. It's like forgetting the fact that the thing travels back and forth in the future, only focus on the fact that it's a beautiful DeLorean.
Exactly.
So it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah. So when it comes to the teeth, that's kind of what's, and the other thing about the teeth is that it's also just, if you look at the architecture inside the place. Now, people who know about the Tower of Teeth may just think of it as, well, it's just a a tower of teeth that are stacked on one another. And it's not. It's not just an actual tower. There are things inside the tower. There are levels to that tower. God knows how many, but
there are furnished rooms. I mean, that's just,
yeah, there are. I mean, everything, and I mean everything, is made of teeth. There's furniture made of teeth, chandeliers made of teeth, fireplaces made of teeth, everything, floors made of teeth.
there are more mosaics, but the thing is, I don't think what the public doesn't really realize, the fact that only 11 floors are actually open to the public.
Yeah, it's like 11 or 12 are open to the public, I think.
And the rest have not been. I'm sure they've probably been explored, or I'm not sure, but
I don't know. I mean, they're very tight-lipped about those things as to how many floors actually get explored. I mean, I know that they're limited to like 11 or 12 floors. But I mean, just in those 11 or 12 floors, if you look at the ornateness of the design, I mean, just strictly looking at the architectural design, I mean, you have, like you mentioned, these mosaics, but a lot of these mosaics are made simply by using the orientation of the teeth and kind of contrasting the orientation in such a way as to actually create pictures in the wall, just using these teeth. There are statues made completely of teeth, these weird, horrific, monstrous statues, again, that kind of hold the same theme of teeth or eating or something of a carnivorous nature. It's just really interesting and really ornate and really quite beautiful to look at.
But unnerving at the same time. I mean, this thing, the largest structure on Earth, appeared virtually overnight, almost.
Exactly, and as everybody knows, during the year 1999, we call the Great Darkness, that no one has any memory of that year, and it just appeared right after that, which calls into question also the main scientific narrative, how the hell this thing got built so quickly. in the period of a year. Now, if you look at the skyscraper in Dubai, it took them years and years to build that thing. And that's from materials that are specifically designed for buildings. Like you have real scaffolding, you have real alloys, you have real materials that have been specifically designed to be used for that type of building. Teeth were not specifically designed for this, which actually brings us to another interesting point I think you mentioned earlier of how the teeth are actually held together, how the whole thing is held together.
Well, again, it's the kind of. I'm not sure if the theory of the fusion of the anomalous teeth actually kind of ties into this whole thing, but we're not quite sure how this structure actually is held up in place. There were some theories about some sort of a salival adhesive, something similar to the birds we were talking about earlier. South Asian bird that basically builds its nests.
Yeah, the swift. I think it's a Southeast Asian bird called a swiftlet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they use their saliva to create nests. It adheres all the straw together and it creates a nest. And yeah, that's from what I understand. Various labs have shown that there is a material, some sort of epoxy that holds the teeth together. Now, the interesting thing, again, is they've said that it's human-like saliva. And that's kind of where the catch is, a human-like. And it's saliva, folks. I mean, if you know anything about DNA testing, they use...
they swab you for that.
They swab you for that to get DNA tests. It's very easy to extract DNA. So it should be a very, very easy process to figure out whether this is human saliva or not. But what they say it is, well, it seems to be human saliva mixed with some sort of other compound to create this really adhesive epoxy that they'd never seen before. And I'm just not sure if that means, well, it's human saliva mixed with something, or is it actually a different type? Is it similar to saliva but isn't human saliva? And they've been, again, quite vague on that count.
Well, I mean, it all ties into the fact that how the structure came to be. I mean, I've heard, there are many theories out there, many crazy ones. I think one of the ones that makes just boils my blood is the theory that this is some sort of an organized effort among, thousands and thousands of people around the globe to erect some sort of almost kind of like a crop circle type of, hoax. People think this is a hoax, a 5,000-foot structure made out of teeth, 3 types of teeth and one type that we cannot really, identify. This is some sort of a hoax.
Yeah, that just makes no sense because we know. I mean, the various people in the sciences won't even debate this point, which is that it was clearly made during the Great Darkness. It was discovered it was one of the first obscura, and again, for those people who are just tuning in, obscura is a term that's very commonly used for those artifacts that were found after the Great Darkness of 1999. It was one of the first obscura discovered. It's kind of hard not to notice a 5,000-foot tower made of teeth. And it clearly didn't precede the Great Darkness. We would have known if it existed. So that's just a ridiculous theory. Some of the other debunking theories is it just happened to be just happened to somehow naturally occur, which is utter and complete bullshit. That's just not. I just can't see where that's feasible. Furniture doesn't get. It
was swamp gas. It was swamp gas.
Yeah, exactly.
Barn owls and swamp
gas and people who don't know how to identify things properly. So it seems to be. The main narrative here is that it's man-made and that perhaps the saliva that causes the teeth to adhere together, or the saliva-like substance, is kind of a continuation of this what we're going to start getting into in a little bit, is this kind of carnivorous ideology that seems to have gone into the Tower of Teeth, at least from a thematic point of view, is that the teeth is associated with consumption, eating, saliva is associated with consumption. There seemed to be this kind of almost
theme of hunger,
almost a religious thing about hunger that goes into the Tower of
And that's
Teeth.
the weird thing is that a lot of the religions that have emerged after the Great Darkening are the same type that are denying the paranormal aspect of this. These are the same people who are claiming that this is some sort of an organized effort by other cults.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not like you would. I mean, it just seems to be an asinine perspective. This thing can't be erected overnight. So even if how the hell could someone perform a hoax that quickly? Nobody notices. Oh wait, by the way, I see that you're making it.
I think they state that simply because they cannot. They can't really claim it as part of their religion. Mm-hmm. They can't really claim it as a miracle. So if it's not, it's got to be a false prophet. But they can't even claiming this is a false prophet somehow. Turns into a dangerous narrative for them. So they just want to flat out deny this as a hoax. As this is I've literally heard this. This is in the same vein as those guys that go out with boards and rope and they make giant crop circles. Well, no. Those guys can actually demonstrate how they do that. No one has been able to replicate, even on the smallest scale.
Well, yeah, and it's not like it hasn't been tried. I mean, scientists various architects actually have tried to replicate the Tower of Teeth using similar materials, and they haven't been able to do it.
The Cambridge University crew tried to do it with PVC glue. Mm. They just accounted for the fact that might be probably the lightest and the best holding material for the collection. I think they had, I don't know how many pounds, half a ton of teeth, and it collapsed under its own weight, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, people like to say, they like to say, we didn't know how the pyramids were made, so maybe it's like that. But we do know how the pyramids.
We know how the pyramids were made. They're made in many, many ways.
It's a very false perception that we don't know how the pyramids were made. We know how the pyramids were made.
Hey, aliens.
It's aliens, of course.
Aliens.
They make everything. And and I'm not against an alien theory here. I don't know what made it, but it certainly
could
is.
Very well be because, again, I don't want to say that I know for sure, but again, the third category of the teeth, anomalous, might as well be an alien species.
Yeah.
And where did these teeth come from? Let's get into that because that is also very, very, it makes me kind of paranoid, to be honest.
What are you talking about?
I am talking about the mass unearthings of graves across the world.
Yeah, that is really interesting. That is very scary to think about. So for those who don't know, after the Tower of Teeth was discovered, it was shortly discovered afterward that, I mean, globally, there were various cemeteries, graveyards that had been various mausoleums or whatever. Many of the bodies had been dug up and the teeth were missing. And I mean, entire slews of people where the teeth were missing. And they, kind of hypothesized, well, maybe these teeth were the ones that were used for the Tower of Teeth. I mean, It just does seem odd that a Tower of Teeth appears, and all of a sudden and quite literally thousands of corpses were robbed of teeth. And the interesting thing about that is forensically, they showed that they didn't seem to be pried out. There didn't seem to be any evidence of force, where you would go in with pliers. They were just missing, as if they were never there before. And this isn't just in one country or state. For instance, the Tower of Teeth is located kind of in a vague area, but it's right outside of the city, the tiny little town of Dismas in Maryland. And it's not like, I mean, there were cemeteries. There were unearthed caskets in the cemeteries in that region, but all over the world, across the oceans, everywhere.
But then again, as you would present it, and you would say, well, here's a Tower of Teeth. There's a structure made out of teeth, and here we have mass unearthings, mass cemeteries where bodies have been exhumed and their teeth are missing. And yet somehow it took forever for the common consensus to basically be that these things are related. Because before that, the popular thing was to say mass erosions have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It seems to, I mean, it's a pun, but it's kind of like getting anyone to admit anything or for it to make sense. It's almost like pulling teeth.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
did
like
one,
that.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that's another aspect of this that is quite bizarre, is these weird unearthings of caskets and corpses all over the world that were missing their missing teeth. But aside from all the physics, the architectural aspects of the tower, which is impressive to say the least, when we start to get into the actual effects that people report about when being in the being close to the tower, that's a whole nother thing entirely, and it just gets more weird and more interesting from there. Particularly because, so let's start with the main cases that everybody
Oh yes,
knows about, which is the disappearance of Judith Beckett. I'm sorry, and Mason Filborn.
Let's go with Judy first.
Okay, so Judith was the first one. So Judith was one of these people that I guess they call them urban explorers. They like to go into these dilapidated buildings, houses, abandoned houses.
She's a real outdoorsy girl, as far as everybody's who knew her has told us.
Yeah, and that's basically what she was. She'd explore these places, stay overnight in them, document some stuff, take film of it, pictures, what have you, put it up on her YouTube page and everything. So, and that's basically what she did. So in 2005, we know, or at least it's hypothesized that she went to the Tower of Teeth based on what her friends said. They said she was going to go break into the Tower of Teeth because she was really interested in going there and exploring. It was a weird place, and it was somewhat near Jamie. She lived in the area,
which isn't that weird because this place gets broken into all the time. And
yeah. I mean, shit. I used to do that when I was going to break into places that were weird, and go play and trespass all the time.
But you've never been to the Tower of Teeth.
No, I've never been to the Tower of Teeth. I would never trespass in there. Never do it.
Too afraid.
So, from what we understand, that's what she was going to go do. She was going to break in there. She was going to take some photos, take some camera, or take some video, and kind of explore, wander around. So, but that's the last anybody ever heard of her, from her. There were search parties after she'd been missing for a few days. And what they found is in the woods very close to the Tower of Teeth, where they found dead animals, rabbits, woodchucks, rodents with gnaw marks on them. Some had been half-eaten. Some there were just remnants of animals left. There were even gnaw marks and chew marks on bark of wood, some rocks, and then finally what they found at the end of this trail was, believe it or not, a coyote.
That's wild. And
this coyote was eviscerated. So it had its stomach ripped open.
We're not talking about something that has been bludgeoned by maybe a weapon or anything. This thing has been torn apart.
Yeah, exactly. So the bizarre part about this was, of course, if someone met if you went head to head with a coyote, and you had a bat or something that you could bludgeon a coyote, you might be able to win. But there was no.
Oh no!
I mean,
I'm not sure if I had a stick and I'm going to whack.
Yeah,
bam.
exactly.
That coyote.
I mean, you got slim chance, but at least at that point, there's a salvageable theory there that, all right, well, they killed it with a bat or something like that.
I don't know. I'm 6 foot. I'm 320 pounds. I don't know if I stand a chance to get a pissed off coyote. I mean, I don't know.
For some reason, I think I can fight a coyote. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just arrogant on that level.
Maybe.
But listen, I will put the.
We'll put it to the test.
I would put bets on the coyote.
But Steven Luciano is willing to fight a coyote for science.
For science. So just who will win. But in this case, there was no evidence that any materials, no objects had been used to harm the coyote. What they did find was claw marks. Well, fingernail marks. I shouldn't say claws. Fingernail marks all over the coyote. And from there, what they found was that there were bite marks on it as well. So it looks like it was opened up by an excessive amount of force together with fingernails and bites until it was torn open, eviscerated. So,
well, the strange thing is that the point from when she disappeared officially, what they think she disappeared, and when they found the coyote, this is a pretty extensive amount of time. But they're stating that they found all of her gear. She left her clothes behind. And really, in that time of year, what was it, like October?
Yeah, it was October.
October is
yeah.
pretty.
October and yeah.
Yeah, it's really cold. It gets cold at night, and this is we're not talking about hours after they found we're talking about like a week or so.
Yeah, yeah.
And for anybody to survive in the elements without clothes and equipment at night, I'm not sure if anybody can do that, and how that's even possible. Let alone, someone who leaves trails of dead animals after them.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, I think it was about 20 degrees at that time during that week. I mean, 20 to 30 degrees, which is pretty goddamn cold if you don't have clothes. On top of that, she's running around naked. She's catching animals that I don't think any normal human being could just run around and catch. I mean, I don't know if ever a little kid try to catch a bunny or catch a bunny or something, but it just didn't happen. You can't generally run down a rabbit. You can't generally run down any of those animals. And you certainly can't physically fight a coyote, let alone rip it apart.
That's why people would set traps.
Yeah.
No traps were found in the vicinity. These animals were ambushed.
And they had found traces of her DNA. No teeth, though, which is interesting because when we get to the next case.
Oh, yeah.
So understanding Judith Beckett's case is paramount when trying to understand Mason Filborn's case and how important that one is. So years later, I think around, Judith was back in 2005.
2005 was her.
Mason was 2013. And I give you a little background on Mason Filborn. Nothing like Judith. Wasn't a explorer of any kind. He wasn't... let's just say he wasn't a daring guy. He didn't like to go out and do break into places or anything like that. He was.
Allow me to say this as an honorary fat person. This was a chubby dude. Okay, a short, stubby, chubby dude. He's a dad. He got a dad bod. So not outdoorsy. Just a couch potato, regular guy.
Yeah, and he was an architect. He had 2 kids. He had a wife, and wasn't a very exciting guy, and the only reason he went to go see the Tower of Teeth was for its architectural value. From an architect's perspective, it seemed to be an interesting structure to go look at. So his wife said that he planned to go out. He went that day. He left around, I think, 1 p.m. And we know he arrived. We know he got there. And also, by the way, he didn't have any kind of interest in the paranormal whatsoever. There was no evidence that he believed in the supernatural or the paranormal or was any kind of purveyor of conspiracy theories or anything along those lines. He just wanted to look at it based on its architectural value.
It's one of those wonders of the world, That's the thing.
And people from all over the world come and see it.
Yeah.
So he got there, I think he left around 1. I think he got there around 3:30, something along those lines. We have video of him being there. And then what do? He goes to the shop, and then he just kind of drops his stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah, he has bags. He bought things, apparently. And then there's about 30 to 40 minute footage of him in the gift shop downstairs at the entrance to Tower of Teeth, where he just stands, and then he drops everything, and he just walks out. And then he basically walks out of the frame of the security camera, and that's that. This tower is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. They've actually had to create roads to get there. I mean, that's
exactly
how far.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we lose him. And then again, he doesn't return. So his wife calls, worried, puts in a missing persons report, and the guy's gone for 6-7 days. And finally, the search party finds remnants of or traces of him in the nearby forest, very similar to where Beckett was.
But here, the similarities they kind of end. Well, no, I'm sorry. do start finding casket.
Yeah, they find
carcasses.
They find they find the animal carcasses again. They find animals, or they find rabbits. They find all the similar types of animals you would find in the forest. There was even a deer in there, and again, half eaten, some eaten, some chewed on. Again, inanimate objects had been chewed on. It looked like there'd been it looked like there were handfuls of dirt taken up. And this time, and is insane as this sounds,
this is my favorite.
They find him. Unlike the Beckett case, they do find him, and he is not inside of a coyote. He is inside of a black bear. And alive. He is alive, and he is inside of its disemboweled stomach. And again, no signs of him using a weapon whatsoever. Same signs, chew marks on the bear. There seemed to be bruising. There seemed to be look like he, for lack of a better word, that he somehow had wrestled a bear and fought a bear, or whatever he did, had ended up eviscerating that bear. And there didn't seem to be any evidence of him using any kind of tool whatsoever other than his hands. Which is, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's possible. But nonetheless, the entrails were scooped out, and they found him sleeping naked inside the emptied bowels of a bear.
And again, this guy is not tall. He is 5'7", about a little below average, I guess. Chubby dude, and passive. He's an intellectual.
But, I mean, to be honest, this man could be the most fit, strong man in the world.
I mean,
and it wouldn't matter.
A black bear. Yes, granted, it's not the biggest bear out there. It's not a grizzly or a brown bear, but this is still a bear.
Again, the strongest man, the toughest man in the world, isn't even going to remotely go toe-to-toe with a black bear. It's just not going to happen.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't know who you're thinking of.
No, I'm just thinking.
I just don't.
I wasn't going anywhere with that.
But so yeah, I mean, and the excuse on that is that, well, human beings in certain tough conditions and circumstances can have overflows of adrenaline, and yeah, I get that. I get the whole perspective that, yeah, we can show unbelievable bouts of strength. You have the story of the mom trying to save her kid and knocking the car out of the way, or a guy
is that true at all? I don't think
it is. To a certain, it is. You can have bouts of, I don't want to call it super strength, but enhanced strength.
But this guy had bouts of enhanced.
There's he
got the munchies.
Yeah, there's moving a car a little bit is one thing. You can do that. You can move a car a little bit. You're not going to pick up a car over your head. You're also not going to bludgeon a bear to death with your fists either, and then rip apart its stomach with your hands.
To be fair, as far as I know, they found nothing illicit in his bloodstream.
Nothing, no drugs, no nothing. No, clean.
Because I mean, meth heads could do show some great feats of
they can
athletic prowess, but this guy was clean. He was
clean. His bloodstream, there was no sign of drugs whatsoever.
Wow.
And the other interesting thing was, as we brought up before, there were teeth left behind, because obviously biting on rocks will break your teeth off, which is something that he did. The interesting thing, now this is where it kind of goes into rumor. I had talked to some other people, the Weird Book organization, who know a little bit more about this, and who knew people in the forensics team. And they had said, after they had collected the teeth, and some of the teeth were used for DNA extraction, what have you, but after the remaining teeth were put into storage, they were gone. There's no traces of this day. Again, according to this other guy I was talking to, there's no traces of those teeth. They're completely gone.
And it's kind of like the moon rocks, Mm-hmm. NASA claims that they brought, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of them, but now they're gone.
Now they're gone, yeah.
I love their explanation. Well, it's because over the years, people kept on taking
the moon rocks. And Beckett's teeth were never found. So these are two stunningly similar acts of weirdness that happen near the tower teeth and seem to share the same exact theme. Mm-hmm. And except that one of them was found. And
And he's institutionalized, as far as I know.
He's currently institutionalized, from what I understand. I don't know exactly where, but they have published case studies on him. Very similar to an individual named, for instance, HM, where they do clinical studies on really novel cases. For instance, historically, man known by the acronym HM, or by the initials HM, they removed his hippocampus in order to try to alleviate his seizures. And not knowing back then the importance of the hippocampus in declarative and episodic memory, they destroyed his capability of making new memories. So they performed various studies on him to understand the importance of this particular neural substrate. So very similar to HM, they've studied this guy. And one of the interesting things that they've found is an fMRI study that they published, I don't know, a few years ago, showed that the lateral hypothalamus was overactive and the ventromedial hypothalamus was underactive. Now, what that means, the lateral hypothalamus tends to be active when you're hungry, and the ventromedial hypothalamus is active when you've eaten and you're satisfied. You're no longer hungry. So it basically shuts it down so that you don't constantly want to eat. And the interesting thing is with that particular profile, it would mean that he's always hungry, no matter what. The lateral hypothalamus is said is almost perpetually active, and the ventromedial hypothalamus, which would mean he's been satiated, is never active or very rarely active. The other interesting aspect of this is there's another part of the brain called the insular cortex, and this is important because what the insular cortex becomes active when a person sees food cues. So, for instance, if you see a pie, you see pizza, it'll activate. It's a food cue. It means, oh, I like that. I want it's a viable
You start salivating.
eating source.
Yeah.
You eat it. So it's for discriminating between different food sources. So if you see something that you don't like, it doesn't activate. But if you see something you do like and you want to eat it, it activates.
It happens to me
All
every
the time.
15 minutes.
Exactly. But what they found with his is that his was constantly active. It was active on everything that he saw. He did not discriminate between food sources, which makes sense when you go back to the forensic data suggesting that he was not only eating animals, he was eating like rocks and stone and tree bark. And what this creates is this weird hunger neuropathology that he has, where he is perpetually hungry and he will eat practically anything.
How is he able to digest that stuff? That's just...
That I don't know. They've never... Well, a lot of times you can't digest it. You either shit it out or you vomit it up.
Right.
But yeah, and he was shortly after also diagnosed with schizophrenia because of the strange delusions he was having. He was reporting hearing voices, constant growls.
Yeah.
He talked about really, really, really bizarre stuff about infinite hungers and different cosmos. Just a very bizarre ideology he had adopted.
Is that the reason he's committed right now?
Yeah, it's partially. Yeah, that, and I mean he still acts erratically from what I understand. Very little information has been released about him on a personal level. I'm assuming that's due to the family not wanting to overexpose him unnecessarily. So yeah, and again, along with that weird neurobiological profile, they also found hormonal changes in him that, again, reinforce the idea of this kind of perpetual hunger syndrome where he's got, increased hormone levels of ghrelin, which, again, is higher in the bloodstream when you're hungry, and then leptin, which decreases after you've eaten. So it's just a really bizarre thing. But he didn't have a history of any kind of psychological or mental illness.
That's what I've heard. Could there have been something that could have triggered something that he already might have had?
I mean, something that immediate. I mean, yeah, there have been clinical cases before where all of a sudden something snapped. Sometimes it could be a metastasized tumor that can then cause neurological dysfunction or psychological aberrations. But again, they did scans. There's no sign of they would find it. I mean, after those previous cases I had mentioned of spontaneous or delusions or psychosis, they found the tumor. He has no tumor. His brain is otherwise normal except for that particular pattern of inactivation and activation. So, the common denominator here between the two cases, which oftentimes skeptics will say, well, it's just correlative, just happens to be, it's just a coincidence. Well, it's an awfully strange coincidence.
There are often a lot of coincidences surrounding the Tower of Teeth in the first place.
Yeah, you have a tower made of teeth where the theme is clearly revolving around hunger, eating, and then all of a sudden you have two individuals who almost demonstrate the same exact pattern of behavior together with an unbelievable supernatural capability of manhandling animals that would normally destroy you. It's just, I mean, any one of these things could probably be explained away. But once you start taking into consideration the architecture, the biological samples that the tower is made up of, both the saliva and the teeth, and then you start talking about these weird instances of erratic, strange behavior from people, it just doesn't add up. It's too much. There's too much there to just kind of
to deny it. To
deny there's something there. So, and that's not all. Those are just the two most known cases. So, there's also other people who visited the tower who've had really weird.
Well, there are thousands actually. Yeah. Just people reporting hunger, people reporting noises. There are people reporting salivation from the walls, which is just freaky.
Yeah. There was that one. That one video, which we'll go over the video because we actually have one. We have an audio submission from one of our listeners actually. But like you said, some people suffer from this kind of weird hunger afterward, and we're not just talking about you want a hot dog afterward or something like that.
No,
it's an insatiable hunger, and I'm not. It's not everybody. I mean, thousands of people visit this place. But there's a significant enough reports to suggest that there's something to it, right? I mean,
they have food trucks that come out there. I mean, there are people at Dismas. They're trying to capitalize on every single aspect of this thing that basically appeared outside their town.
Yeah, but so there's other. So the interesting thing is, like we said, there's these other cases of pathological hunger, but one of the interesting things that happens is, again, they suffer from this weird delusion of eating, or they have the idea that there's some entity or entities that are speaking to them, that somehow they're compelled to eat, and through their eating it's feeding them. So it's a really bizarre ideology. But many of them report having dreams. Now, in the more severe cases that have lasted months, some of them have gone through a really bizarre process where they start to lose their teeth. Mm-hmm. Some of them have reported losing molars, incisors, but never their canines. That's the interesting thing, that they never lose their canines. Any other tooth they can lose. I'm not saying their whole mouth falls out, all the teeth fall out, but they'll start losing some teeth that weren't loose before.
There are also people who allege to have lost teeth and have had new teeth grow there, and they are canines as they're stating.
Yeah, did you see that one picture I showed you with
is that confirmed?
Yeah, it's actually they actually confirmed that.
We'll put in the show notes so you guys can look at what it is. And I'm sure you can Google it. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the internet, obviously.
Yeah, so it's really weird. I don't even know if it's a canine, or almost kind of looks like like a shark tooth almost. It's really weird. But it's been reported several times, and it has been documented. Again, it's been kind of pushed off as, well, it's just this weird oddity that's occurred. It just happens to be sometimes people go to the Tower of Teeth, which is just really lame.
I love it. It's coincidental.
It's coincidental. It's a lot of coincidences piling up.
Happens
with this thing. So, you have these weird incidences where people suffer from this weird hunger syndrome. Again, it's not as intense as the two cases we spoke of earlier. But then you have people missing their teeth, and then growing canines. They're not missing their canines are the only ones that don't fall out, and then they regrow teeth where they normally wouldn't regrow teeth, and they happen to be canines or some weird sharp tooth. So it's just a strange place that, in my opinion, clearly has an effect on people. How it implements that effect, I have no idea. But it seems like there's just an overwhelming amount of strangeness that is being largely ignored by the mainstream scientific community. Now, obviously, there's been a schism in the scientific community, as we've seen, where, a lot of scientists are starting to explore alternative perspectives. I don't want to say that they're going into the occult, but they're certainly starting to talk about different fields. So, for instance, you're starting to see a lot of quantum mechanics start to integrate with neurobiology, and you're even starting to see, some occult aspects being integrated into science. Just because these things are so overwhelmingly odd that a lot of scientists have come forward from the physics field, the neurobiology field, the anthropology field, and basically said, look, this crosses the threshold. At some point, we have to make a concession that something else is going on here that doesn't conform to our traditional perspective on how the universe works. So,
but it doesn't make it magic. That's the thing.
No, and I don't necessarily think it's magical. I don't know what it is. But clearly it has an effect. So, in going on that, a lot of times, as you listeners know, we'll get contributions from you guys. You'll send us tapes, photographs, anything like that. So again, we have something for you tonight.
Oh yeah, you did not disappoint this time again.
Yeah, we have someone who has broken into the Tower of Teeth, which we do not recommend.
Please don't do that. But if you are, document it and send it to us.
Send it to us. We're not.
But once again, we do not condone.
Yeah, we do not condone breaking in.
Nor do we really condemn, but we definitely don't condone
to trespass into places that it's unlawful, especially into places like this where, as we've talked over the last 45, 50 minutes, that there's certainly some odd things coming.
Yeah, you might end up in a bear.
Yeah, you might end up in a bear. No one wants to end up in a bear or a coyote.
It's true.
I'm not sure which one I'd prefer. I've never smelled the inside of either one.
I don't know. I prefer to end up in a bear alive.
Bear is nice. It seems more cozy.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate the person who sent this in. It's anonymous.
We'll keep it anonymous. Yeah,
we'll keep it anonymous. Well, they didn't put their name on it anyway. Oh. So, but we want to have you guys take a listen, and we'll be back in a few moments. See what you to discuss.
All right. I'm in the Tower of Teeth now. Oh, this place is fucking bizarre. I'm going up a stairway right now. These walls, holy shit. They got designs on them and everything. There's, I don't know, I'm looking at some weird thing. It's got like, I don't know, like a pictograph or something of, I don't know, like a giant mouth, I think. Jesus, this place is unbelievable. Okay. I'm just trying not to make a lot of noise. I don't know if, I don't think there's security guards around here, but it's awfully weird that there ain't, but, holy shit, look at this thing. I'm on like the second floor, and there's a box here. It's made of teeth. There's nothing in it really, but Jesus, the teeth just feel like they're like polished and stuff, and they're so weirdly clean. This thing again, it's got like hieroglyphics or some weird thing. It's got all these weird shapes and stuff, but like a lot of it's like jaws and stuff. Like, I don't know, monsters or whatever. Alright, I'm going up again. There's like weird lamps. There's like this weird fucking chandelier right above me. It's fucking awesome. It's got like huge fangs on each end, and it's got smaller teeth and stuff. And you can see some of those other teeth that they talk about, those weird teeth that they don't think is from any species we know of. They're on the ends. They're fucking huge. Ain't no goddamn way that's like just normal teeth blended with other teeth. As you go over here, there's a weird fireplace. It's even got like one of those stokers on the side. Again, it's got like weird pictures and like sigils. Like not engraved, it's like the teeth are organized a certain way. Take a little look at some stuff. Yeah, there's all sorts of weird shit in here. There's like even portraits. Like the portraits are like made of like darker teeth and lighter teeth. I don't know what the hell they're depicting, but there's weird shit on there. Man, these are awesome. Yeah, it's got like a, I don't know, like a guy in this one portrait, but he's not a guy. He's obviously, I don't know. Looks like a cross between a guy and like a wolf or something weird. I don't know. But, yeah, let's see if I can go up another. Let's see, this is so going down a hallway right now. It's twisting around the original room. I just came up on the second floor. Yeah, this portrait's everywhere. It's creepy as shit in here. It's this dead silent, you know? You always feel like something's watching you or something. Let's see, where is that? Oh my god, holy shit. There's a giant mural on this thing. I mean, it goes from the floor all the way to the top of the room. Again, it's like it's got like a collage of like beasts and stuff. Again, it's like all made with teeth and stuff. But again, there's those teeth again right here that they're all weird. They don't even look like teeth on some level. A lot of it's human teeth. There's a table here too, almost like an altar. Jeez, what's that like? Let me see. I'm touching it like that. Like I said, it's like super polished. Yeah, this table's got like 5 legs on it, all made of teeth. It's bizarre. Alright. I'm gonna go yeah. Yeah, but I haven't seen any though, some of the weird things you hear about on the internet. There's no, like that one where the walls are salivating and shit. That's happening. It's pretty quiet in here. But I gotta be quick. I'm gonna have to get down to the first floor real quick if someone sees me. I cut the wires outside, so I'm hoping all the cameras are out, but I got a mask on anyway, so no one will see me. Oh, shit. Wait a second, I think I heard something. Alright, I'm gonna have to start getting out of here. Jesus, this place is so fucking amazing.
And we're back. Well, you just heard, this is obviously a recording.
They didn't seem to have any. Well, with smartphones these days, you can usually use your video, but it looks like they decided to just go with the audio because they didn't have any. It was too dark, and apparently, I don't really know why they didn't go with audio, but I'm assuming, or a video, but I'm assuming that's the case.
I don't know. Do you buy this one?
I mean, to be honest, I mean, it sounds.
It sounds creepy.
It sounds creepy. It's definitely strange. I see what the person. It's very similar to EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, which is something that you see in hauntings, where you record something, you don't hear it explicitly, but then when you go back through the tape, you start to hear things in the background that were not there before. So it's clearly one of those types of audio recordings.
It's like basically like a demonic kind of
growling
chant, like you hear in a Buddhist temple.
Yeah, one of them.
But this is somewhat really corrupt.
Yeah, and this is it does conform to that kind of carnivorous theme, eating theme. You can hear things obviously chewing and eating and sound animalistic, almost demonic. It's not over the top by any means, which would certainly suggest its authenticity. Usually, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it over that. But that being said, you don't know. I mean, anybody can do anything these days. Someone could have just taken a recording and then just put stuff in the background, and that's it.
And I mean, I'm not trying to, diss the person that sent this to us. If you have, in fact, not doctored it in any way, and if this is really genuine, I really do thank you. We both thank you very much for sending it to us. But just the nature of submission being so anonymous and so very little information is given. We don't have a date to when this was recorded, so we can't really place it anywhere on the calendar. But we do have a recording. And, it's more than we could ask for, obviously. Whether it's authentic or not, you know what? I'll leave it up to the viewer at this point.
Yeah.
Kind of make up their own
I mean, it's definitely, if authentic, it's very interesting. I'll say that. That being said, there's other footage out there. I'd say probably the most compelling footage is the one that went viral a few years back with the salivating on the wall.
That's true. And I've heard, this is obviously green screen. I'm not sure you can...
Well, you've got a lot of background in film anyway. So
yes, and the thing is, just to execute something like that, even if it was green screen, you would still need a very, very well done background, and for someone to replicate that, I would estimate just the sheer time it would take to create visual effects like that would be around $80,000 right now.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for especially what amounted to like a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Yes, and it's obviously it's shot on a cell phone. Obviously, it's a night footage, so it's low res. Actually, it's high res, but it's low light footage. But you get it's undoubtable where they are.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's so that would be my the one thing that I think, or one of the several things that points to its legitimacy is, one, like you said, it's very difficult to get those types of effects on a budget that I believe those kids could have. Two, they are actually on site. I mean, we've talked to professionals and people who've actually been in the Tower Teeth and studied the Tower Teeth, in fact, and they've said that it's undoubtedly in there. Because to replicate those levels as exact as they did, because there's been video forensics that have gone in there and basically said, yeah, it's legit. So I think we can pretty much safely say that they are in the Tower of Teeth in that video. So they would have had to pull off, a huge budget, and to get those special effects implemented inside that tower, which is under high security all the time, which is amazing how people break into the goddamn place so much. But
dimensionally, it was correct.
Oh.
Just in sheer parameters, the way the camera moves around, the actual location, angles, and the way the light glistens off of the teeth, off of everything. We're dealing with an emerald, so it's reflective. And
I mean they
have
do
flashlights. They have multiple flashlights, and we see lights crossing each other, and they're reflecting light in the proper way.
And there's one point they look up. I don't know what part of the tower, but it looks up, and it goes up real high, and you can see threads of saliva coming down from a space you can't really see, but you can see the threads coming down, which is an incredibly difficult effect, I imagine. So, I on that, I think that was legit. I think that seemed to be real. Now, obviously, the people who, the powers that be when it comes to the Tower of Teeth, which is I believe it's technically owned by the Museums of Darkness, technically, which is a federally owned, I don't want to call it company, but the Museums of Darkness, obviously, many of you have probably been to them, where they collect the various obscurum, put them on display. There's a lot of them. There's almost one in every state.
They don't put on display, unfortunately, which is very, very frustrating. They seem to collect and preserve a lot more material than they actually display.
Yeah. Some of them are not on display very much. Lucifer's revolver has only been on display a couple times, but we'll be doing an episode on that soon. There's another really interesting obscurum, but I just don't. They deny that this happened. They just said it's a hoax, and that, I mean, they can leave it at that. They don't really have to explain anymore. It's up to whoever's watching it to determine that. But if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's extremely weird, and based on what we understand about it, I would say it's legitimate. But the other thing we were talking about is how the hell are people getting in here? Because the other weird thing about the tower is that it's all its employees. I believe you were talking about how they're all
ex-military or ex-police force.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting, a very eclectic crew of people that are actually running the show.
Yeah.
But even as far as I know, even the person who's running the gift shop is also a paramilitary or ex-military person. There seems to be a very interesting kind of hiring parameters here.
Yeah, because, I mean, for all essential purposes, this is a museum. In a sense, it is actually run by the Museums of Darkness. It just happens to be you can't stick this one in a building. It is a building. But it's a tourist attraction, which most time you don't need your ticket holder to be a gun-toting ex-military.
Well, it's a tourist attraction against the will of the actual organization. I'm sure if they could, they would somehow cloak it if they could actually do it. But this is the world's tallest structure. They cannot deny its existence.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it is that it does, I mean, you don't need, if there was nothing going on with that place, there was nothing that was dangerous, nothing like that, then why hire those types of people?
Well, not even that. If they keep on insisting that this place is not dangerous, why do you have to sign a release form?
Yeah, exactly.
upon, I mean, it could be a gimmick.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic gimmick if that's what it is.
Yeah.
It only attracts people, but you do have to sign a waiver.
Yeah, you do. Yep. Yeah, you have to sign a waiver if you go. We're not joking. Try going to the damn place. You have to actually sign a waiver for going in there.
Yeah.
Which I've never had to sign a waiver for going to any museum. So, again, it just speaks tomes about whether this place is dangerous, and if so, well, one, if so, and they know it's dangerous, why the hell are they letting people go see it?
Oh, they're saying, it's not dangerous at all, but here, go ahead and
But
sign
you're going
this.
inside. And the interesting thing is, you know how you've seen how guarded the fucking place is. I mean, it's guarded.
Oh, yeah.
Yet people keep getting inside. And I mean, these aren't, I mean, no insult to the people who are going in there, but they're not military people. I mean, they're kids that kind of go the same way when I used to, go into abandoned buildings or whatever. I would just sneak across the fence and get in there.
They are not Indiana Jones.
And these are not Indiana Jones people. They're just thrill seekers who want to get in there. And yet they get in there. But the level of security that is at that place, I'm saying, go look up a video of this place. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. It's got cameras everywhere. And yet some people get inside of it. And I just find that odd, too. I don't know.
I don't know. Where there's a will, there's a way. And
I suppose.
Stupidity is a strong force of will sometimes.
I agree, but I mean, I'm just wondering if there's... I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial, but it does seem odd that they managed to get in there against, ex-Marines and people who used to be on recon teams in the Middle East and such, as they can't detect a couple teenagers.
Well, there are theories. I'm going on to things that are not confirmed, that before this place was open to public, they did experiment by having people stay over, and I'm not quite sure if any of the stories are true, but some horrific things have happened to them overnight. People driven insane. Once again, I mean, there are stories that we have that are confirmed.
Yeah, and then you kind of have your urban legends and
exactly.
myths.
But that's just the way it is. The urban myths and legends will be associated with places like this.
Yeah, obviously.
They cannot be the other way around.
But that's another thing we were talking about with the levels. There's only 12 levels you can go on. Mm-hmm. Now, my question is, how many of these levels have they explored? Now, the place is 5,000 feet tall, or just a little below that. And one of the biggest questions posited by everybody in the world, not just those who are scientifically inquisitive, not just historians or archaeologists, anthropologists, but everybody, wants to know, and I would almost say needs to know, to come to some sort of closure as to what happened during that year in 1999, the Great Darkness. And it would seem to me that this place would be a treasure trove, anthropologically speaking, and historically speaking, as to what may have gone on, at least in regards to that particular structure. Mm-hmm. But we've only gotten the reports from the 12 levels, and again, very few reports of what's above that.
Every inquiry was always returned as it's not public knowledge.
Yeah.
Not for public, which is...
And these are federally funded grants as well. So
these are public funded.
Yeah,
yes.
These are public funded grants in which the results are not published, which either they're not doing the research, and I believe I asked one of our colleagues who does a lot of this type of digging to check into those grants. And there has been over, I think, like $20 million in federal funds in the last 2 years alone to basically do research on the Tower of Teeth, and yet there has been no public discourse whatsoever on it. So that also seems honest. And you can go up and look, find these things yourself. It's just most people don't look this stuff up. So what exactly are they hiding in there? Or, I mean, what is in there that, I mean, beyond those 12 levels? Those 12 levels, by the way, are extravagant. But I'd like to know what else is above there. The probably hundreds of levels.
Or what they've taken out of there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a big question as well.
There are a lot of questions. That's the thing, and as usual, as very common for our podcast is the fact that we always have more questions at the end than we do have answers.
Exactly. So, we try to give you as much information on these things that we can, but at the end, I think we always just come up with more questions.
Right.
But hopefully we've provided you some insight into the Tower of Teeth. Most likely we've provided you enough insight to where you probably will not go to the Tower of Teeth. I know that I will not.
I'm not going, no. I'm afraid of the dentist. I don't do that.
Well, that's...
So, as traditional as it is, the question remains, we're going to get both sides now. So, what is your opinion on what the Tower of Teeth really is?
I mean, my opinion is that it is... Well, let me put it this way. I don't believe the mainstream perspective that it is just a structure that was made during the Great Darkness on the whims of human insanity, which is what's posited happened due to this weird solar flare theory that they keep pushing. And I certainly think that there's something else going on there. What that might be, I don't know. But what I do believe is this. I do believe the third category of tooth morphology is from a distinct, maybe various different species that are unknown. I do not buy the contaminated DNA theory. Same goes for the saliva that seems to adhere the teeth together. And I think those other the cases of Philborn and what's her name? I always forget their names. Which is weird because they're very bizarre cases. Judith Beckett and Philborn, I do not believe those are just instances of two people somehow gone temporarily insane who happen to be in the same place, happen to do the same exact thing, and then demonstrate the same superhuman ability to start destroying predators of large size that would easily kill a human being several times over.
Chewing on some chipmunks.
I do not believe that it's just a random feat of insanity. There seems to be more to it than that. What that is, I don't know. But do I think it's supernatural? Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know how else to explain that. Or some other process that I am not aware of that is natural that we have not discovered yet.
As Stephen Luciano, long-winded as usual. Yes. My answer is easy. Aliens. Always aliens. It's actually one of my favorite theories of what the Tower of Teeth really is, that it's an alien ship.
That is pretty awesome.
I think it's just, if aliens were to come to this planet, they would definitely do it in style. If they came and
they would use teeth.
They made it, but somehow the aliens made the ship mostly out of human teeth.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite crazy theories out there. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Do you think it's human made?
I think it's made out of humans. To be honest, I don't know. I do not think that this was some sort of organized effort overnight to put together this structure, which we still don't know how it's put together. That's the thing. We know how pyramids are put together.
Yeah.
We have multiple, documentation. I mean, Egyptians were very, very much into documenting and writing down and drawing, all in any methods. They were early mathematicians. We don't know the actual procedure of putting these things together.
Yeah.
And we don't even understand how this thing is held up.
Yeah.
Under its own weight.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So my answer is aliens. There you have it.
There we have it. Well, we have two, one very long-winded, I don't know, and a slightly shorter version of I don't know / aliens. So, but like we said, we hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, and also everybody who reached out last time. I thank you all very much for your concerns. I still have the cold. You hear me coughing through the entire podcast. I apologize. I'll try to go to the doctor. All right.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next show.
See you next time. Bye.